What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Going the Distance podcast presented by ImmaculateSports.com. Twitter's at ImacSports.
Instagram is also at Immaculate Sports.
TikTok, YouTube, Immaculate Sports. It's episode 271. Very big one for college football. It's conference championship week. We got a lot to go over, including our brackets. So that will be fun. But some other stuff, too. NFL season's been fun. MLB offseason heating up.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun episode. This will be the first time that we have done a bracket prediction in college football since I think maybe even the first preseason one that we might have done. I'm not even sure if we did one, but seem to remember us that happening. But in comparison last year, I feel like we did it like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
But things are a lot different this year. Obviously, might not even have an ACC team in it. We'll do our whole bracket predictions once we get to the second half of this episode because the top 12 rankings are coming out right now, actually. As I'm saying, Vanderbilt number 14. So once those are fully out, we'll react and get into our own bracket predictions there. But we'll get started with the opener. And you've got something from college football, so it fits perfectly.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like the coaching carousel in college football right now. It's really just the wild, wild west. And who better to lead things off with than Lane Kiffin? I'll say something about the guy, where the guy's going, and if I like it or not, but I'll try to keep it short and sweet because there are some good moves here. So Lane Kiffin, of course, goes to LSU. And I understand why someone like Alex, who we talked to, would be confused. Like, what's the big deal? Yes, it's very stupid. Transfer portal starts at the same time that the playoffs start. But there is no way in hell that Ole Miss is going to let Lane coach that team after he goes to their rivals. There is no way. I totally get that. I don't think it's a bad move. I think he's done some great things at Ole Miss. I am a little hesitant with him because, 9-3 gets you fired down there at LSU, and that's his best season. So if he wants an extension, he's got to go win the SEC. Ole Miss, on the other hand, they go with the Notre Dame strategy. They're immediately naming their DC, Peter Golding, the new head coach. They're going to be in the playoffs, so they got to have a guy who the kids are going to play hard for. He's from the area. He's a Nick Saban defensive assistant. I don't think you could do much better than this. I'm cool with Peter Golding to Ole Miss. So Florida ends up with John Summerall from Tulane. He's actually going to continue to coach Tulane throughout this season because he didn't sneak around Florida. He was straight up with everybody. I think it was time for him to move on. He had Troy ranked 19th. He might have Tulane in the playoffs. I'm cool with this. Auburn ends up with Alex Golish. So South Florida, I bet this guy thought he was getting the Florida job, but the domino effect of Lane Kiffin brings us here with Alex Golish. Always been a very nice team in South Florida. They finally pull it all together, and Auburn just needs a good offense to be respectable again because they don't score a lot of points. And, well, you kind of need to if you want to compete in the SEC. This could realistically be like its own 90-minute episode. So I got 2 more interesting ones. I'll try to wrap it up. I know it's the opener, but it's kind of more than that. UCLA gets Bob Chesney from JMU. That's the heir apparent for Kurt Cignetti. So another team that could end up sneaking into the playoffs. Bobby went 20-4 at JMU. So now it's time to try things out with the big boys. And then the last one I want to talk about, Kentucky is hiring Will Stein. That's the Oregon OC. And just another example, right? If you're in the bottom of the SEC, you need to score points. Even Alabama throws it 40 times a game now. So I'm completely on board with this. They already flipped a 4-star quarterback over to Kentucky. So very exciting. And this is like only a couple days into the offseason.
Yeah, things are gearing up quickly in college football. Even when it's not the offseason, it's still the offseason. And maybe that – not maybe. It definitely needs to be fixed. There needs to be some rules adjusted. And I think a big fish like Lane Kiffin moving could probably be the thing that cues some rule changes here coming up in the future. My opener, I'll keep it short and sweet. I always love when MLB free agency starts to pick up steam. And it's starting to do that now these past couple of weeks. We got our first big fish signing in Dylan Cease going to the Toronto Blue Jays, 7 years, $210 million. We've had some other free agents sign in the past few days. And once the ball gets rolling, it tends to not stop until we get to spring training and I guess WBC for this year specifically. And that's good. Just another, thing to keep track of during this fun time of college football, the NFL, even the NBA, NHL. But the MLB is still pulling some of its weight there. So good to see that. As we move into player, defensive player, and rookie of the week. Player of the week, right to it. Who do you have?
Yeah, well, apparently Bryce Young's good again. Jordan Love, another 4-touchdown game against Detroit. But I'm going to go with Dak Prescott. Even though he throws an interception against Kansas City, I don't care because they beat Kansas City. 320 yards, 2 touchdowns. The Cowboys are still alive somehow. I know you've been watching them this season, specifically Dak, but I really haven't been on board with them until recently. And Dak played awesome.
Yeah. I did not think they were going to win that game against Kansas City. Didn't think they were going to win last week against Philly as well, too. But my player of the week is going to be Bryce Young. This stat line isn't the craziest. 15 for 20, 206, 3 touchdowns. Obviously great, no interceptions. But beating the Rams and just the magnitude of plays that he did, 4th and 3, 3rd and 6, 4th and 1, whatever it was, he was dialing up his best plays for when they needed it the most. And that's been something that's we've actually seen quite a bit of Bryce Young do this year in a bit of a shocking fashion. Carolina's obviously 7-6 now at this point, which is unbelievable. They have wins over the Rams and the Packers. Also mixing a loss to the Saints in there as well too. They're a confusing team. No one really knows if what the ceiling is, what the floor is for this team at this point. But Bryce Young, he balled out on Sunday, and I do think he's deserving of a Player of the Week award. What about Defensive Player of the Week?
I've got Ernest Jones the fourth because he had one of the funniest plays of the season. 2 interceptions, one of which was underhanded by the quarterback, Max Brosmer, and took it to the crib. So I knew immediately he was going to be my Defensive Player of the Week after I saw that one.
My Defensive Player of the Week ended up being Derek Brown, D-tackle for not the Philadelphia Panthers. That makes no sense. The Carolina Panthers. A couple of big plays for him in this one. He had a tipped pass early in the game that resulted in a Matthew Stafford pick in the end zone, actually. Stafford's first pick that he's thrown, it's like week 2, ended the streak of 28 straight touchdown passes without an interception from Matthew Stafford. That was obviously a huge momentum play to keep the Rams out of the end zone, because at that point I believe it was 7-0. Probably could have been 7 or 20 or 14-0 rather quickly. And then he also had the forced fumble sack at the end of the game on Matthew Stafford, which sealed the win for Carolina. So 2 big, win probability plays from Derek Brown in this one, affecting the run as well too, as he always does. But this game really big in the pass. Derek Brown, Defensive Player of the Week for me. How about the Rookie of the Week?
I'm going Kyle Monangai again pretty easily here. The other massive upset of the week, the Bears, unstoppable on the ground against Philadelphia. Monangai goes 22 for 130 and a touchdown. And I played him in a couple of fantasy leagues. So very nice. And still a very big Kyle Monangai fan.
Yeah, I'm going with the Monangai as well, too. 22 for 130 on the ground with a touchdown. Surprisingly not the only Bears running back to have at least 120 in this game, but Monangai was leading the charge here, so to speak, even though it was pretty similar. Regardless, he's been great. This is the guy that you had as one of your fantasy sleepers way back before the season started, when he was like RB 100 or something like that. It's worked out. I got Stephon Diggs out of him from Alex. Diggs hasn't been the greatest, but it set some fire under people in our league. But Monangai is great, and he's fun to watch. And maybe we talk about him in a few minutes. As we get into our top 10 running backs, we did top 10 quarterbacks last year, or not last year. We did it last year, actually, but last week as well, too. But we're doing top 10 running backs this week. So as of right now, the 10 running backs that you're taking, you need to win a game tomorrow. Who's on the field for you? I guess kind of injuries aside as well, too, because obviously everybody's banged up at this point of the season. But we'll get it started with the honorable mentions. Is there anybody that you want to talk about that did not make the list?
Yeah, there's a bunch of guys for whatever reason, not on the list for the end of this season. Ashton Genty, I think, will eventually be here. We'll get this guy some O linemen. He just runs so freaking hard, and I know you get to watch him every week. I did last year. Great guy. Another one of my guys, Brees Hall. Again, like it's when everybody knows you're running up the middle and you're still able to have a productive year. I have to shout this guy out. He's been awesome. Josh Jacobs, kind of on the latter half of his career now, but still definitely serviceable. Had to shout him out. Feel the same way about Javonte Williams. Probably not calling his name in a big game, but hey, he's gotten the job done.
Yeah, I have five guys. I did want to shout out Ken Walker. Ken Walker, I think, has been pretty solid this year. Seattle, as Greg Olson says, they think they're a run team, but they're not. And Ken Walker's really been the reason for that so far this year, aside from JSN and Sam Darnold. He's been good. I think if you watch him play as well too, he looks like a good running back. He passes the eye test. A fun player to watch. If you were to get the ball, 25 times a game, I think he definitely come close to this, top 7 list. Derrick Henry, I have here as well too. He's 7th in rushing right now, but I think it's easy to say that Derrick Henry has lost a step at this point. A couple of his big performances very early in the season. Since then, maybe it's wearing down on him a little bit. I don't know. The fumble issue was there earlier as well too. I think at this point, I'm taking some other backs ahead of him. I put my Guy in here as well too. He's faster than what I ever thought he was going to be. We knew the power was always going to be there with him. But now that he's in a good scheme in Chicago and, they got pulling tight ends and guards and whoever from, I really like watching him play. So Guy, it's an honorable mention. And then 2 guys you mentioned, Brees Hall. I think the receiving game for Brees Hall has really stood out to me this year, especially also just in the run when you know it's going to happen and not being able to stop it's a big thing. And then Ashton Genty as well too is the last one. Only 3.5 yards per carry right now, but you can tell that ain't his fault. And I think the biggest thing that surprised me with Ashton Genty is the 4 receiving touchdowns.
Yeah.
We knew he was going to be a downhill back that's going to truck people and get them over. But his receiving ability has surprised me. And I think once he gets, a real low line and gets put into a good spot, like if he's in Detroit's offense, he's probably putting up 100 plus a game. That's no shot on Monty or Gibbs because you'll see where I have one of them ranked. But all 5 of those guys are good and obviously would succeed in Detroit or Indianapolis, whoever. As we get into number 10, who's the double-digit guy that's just making the list?
All right, we'll start off with Kyren Williams. I totally get it, right? If you think he's a product of the system, obviously Blake Corum comes in and plays fine. But talk about a north and south aggressive runner. Kyren Williams, I think, is still maybe not the top guy in that category, but still in the 1A tier of powerful runners because he hasn't lost his job yet. He's helped the Rams out a lot, 7 touchdowns this year. And a lot of people thought, that first year was it. And he's still having a great season. So I'm going to keep him on the list.
Never thought I'd have this guy as a top 10 running back, but I did put Rico Dowdle. He's been really, really good this year. And also I think Carolina's scheme, props to David Canales for, scheming up all this stuff, but he's been really good when he gets the football. I know there's been some rough games recently, 2.9 yards per carry against the Saints, 2.4 against the Falcons, 3.2 against the Rams this past one. But he's getting first downs. He's making himself useful in the receiving game. And that's not something I thought we'd see from Rico Dowdle just last year watching him play. So number 10 spot for sure for me right now. And he's going to get over 1,000 yards quite easily when we did not think that would be possible in the first 4 or 5 games of the year. Number 9.
At number 9, I'm keeping Derrick Henry on the list. Definitely lost a step. You're right there. But I think he's kind of figured out the fumble issue. No fumbles over the last 6 weeks or so. The offense kind of took a step back. Well, definitely took a step back when Lamar was out. Lamar's still dealing with some stuff. Kind of had to carry the load of the offense over the last 6 weeks or so. So definitely some respect to Derrick Henry for that. They're still alive.
Number 9 for me, I did put Javonte Williams in here. He's had a great year for Dallas. He's kind of one-dimensional, and at this point, probably losing some snaps to Isaiah Davis after his not Isaiah Davis. Oh my gosh. Regardless, I'm blanking on Isaiah Davis is the Jets backup running back.
Jadon Blue?
Not Jadon Blue. But the guy, he had the 43-yard rushing touchdown.
Some receiving
yeah,
back.
he's been good, but regardless, we're not talking about him. We're talking about Javonte Williams. Can't be that good if I don't remember his name. 8 touchdowns on the year, 955 rushing yards. So obviously not like the main option or the second option or even the third option, it feels like, in this Dallas offense. But he's still, making himself known and keeping himself aware. And is already over 1,000 all-purpose yards this year. So Javonte Williams, I think, is worthy of a sneak in at number 9. Number 8.
All right. Number 8, I'm going Devon Achane. Maybe a little low. Maybe it's because I hate Miami. But either way, I don't see it as a negative. I see like, hey, I'm finally putting Achane on the list because he's definitely a multi-facet back with all these different abilities. He's top 5 in rushing, top 5 in receiving this year. Pretty rough situation in Miami. I know, they still got their quarterback, so like the box isn't going to be filled to the brim like some other teams, but another guy keeps trending upwards. So I'm going to keep moving him slowly up the list. Probably top 5 talent. Not quite ready, I guess, to do that.
Number 8 for me is where I put Josh Jacobs. 11 rushing touchdowns is a big key for him this year. We know he doesn't have the blazing speed. Never really showed it with the Raiders, whether it's in Oakland or Las Vegas. Just had his first 20-plus yard rush this season this past week against the Lions. But he's dealing with some very vanilla play calling. I don't think he is a shotgun running back like they like to use him in Green Bay. And he still is, in my opinion, probably the best goal line running back in the league. Showed it so many times for the Raiders where it's just like, you first and 1 at the goal line, who's getting the football. And it's going to work each and every time. Shows it still in Green Bay. Hasn't gotten a touchdown the past few weeks, but had a streak of 6 straight games and 8 out of 9 where he scored a touchdown. And that's not something a lot of guys do nowadays in the NFL. So Josh Jacobs still my top 10. Number 7.
All right, number 7, I got Bucky Irving from Tampa Bay. Not a whole lot of stats to go off of from this season. He's been out for most of the season. But what we do know is this is probably the number 2 receiving back in the league. Very powerful for that kind of archetype, too. So I'm excited to see what he does in the future. For now, I have him above Achane, though. I think he's a little more explosive. But, maybe I eat my words on that one. He is injured.
I left Bucky off my list as of right now. I just don't think we've seen enough of him this year specifically for me to be sold at this point in the season. Number 7, bit of a shocker here. I did put Saquon kind of low, but I do think there's some other backs in the league that are starting to creep up in on. And that happened rather quickly. Last year, obviously would have been the number 1 guy. But at this point, whether you blame his O-line or not, like he just hasn't felt like the same running back this year where he's going to make a guy miss and be gone. And there's other guys in the NFL that are dealing with just as shitty as O-lines and doing more with what they have. It's nothing against Saquon. Love watching him play still, of course. But I think there's 6 guys ahead of him at this point, and I think I can make my case for each of these next 6 on why they are better than him at this point. And maybe that's just natural progression of a running back who's now 28 years old. Number 6.
All right, number 6, I got James Cook, Buffalo. Ridiculous breakaway speed. He gets the ball a ton, and he's been able to stay healthy. He deserves that extension for sure. Shockingly, not the best hands for a guy of his build. So I guess that's the only reason he's not top 5 for me, because he's got 1,200 yards. He's a monster, of course.
Number 6, maybe it's dumb for me to put the guy with the most all-purpose yards in the NFL at number 6, but this is where I have Christian McCaffrey, and I think it's because of the efficiency is why it's so low. I think if you give any guy in my top 5 as many touches as you're giving Christian McCaffrey, they'd have more yards. And that's not anything against Christian McCaffrey. And it's also, probably those top five guys wouldn't even be able to handle a load that Christian McCaffrey's taken this year. Already 300 plus touches this early in the season. Haven't had a bye either until now, and he just powered through it the entire way and hasn't really shown a sign of, being hurt or anything like that. Knock on wood, of course, but the explosiveness is not really there for me anymore. The breakaway speed isn't quite there for me. Obviously, the receiving game, nobody's like him, except for maybe one other guy that we'll talk about here in a second. Great at the goal line, but I think there's five other guys that are better than him in this league. Number 5.
I got Saquon Barkley. I agree with everything you said, right? It just feels like maybe lost a little bit of speed compared to some of the freaks coming into the league now. And, he's just not as efficient. Honestly, I'm taking McCaffrey over him right now. And he's down to about 60 yards a game. It's not all his fault. We know that in Philadelphia, if it's working, they're going to keep doing it, no matter who it is. If it's Josh Dotson, if it's Will Shipley, they're going to go to the guy that's open. That's how they roll. But yeah, I definitely had to drop Saquon a little bit this year.
Number 5, it's always fun when you see an offense that's completely built around a running back that utilizes him in the pass game as well too. Niners very much with Christian McCaffrey, but I think it's very specific with Bijan Robinson in Atlanta, and that's where I have that number 5. Already over 1,500 all-purpose yards on the season, 5 yards away from 1,000 on the ground. I think he's just a better runner than Christian McCaffrey at this point. He's definitely faster. In the receiving game, what he lacks in comparison to McCaffrey, he's better at in all the other aspects. So Bijan gets into my top 5, but I think there's 4 more guys in this league that are better than him. That takes us to number 4.
Okay, well, here's where I got Christian McCaffrey. A ridiculous 800 receiving yards this season. That's unbelievable. And I think a big reason why I kept him up this high, even though, like I just talked about, Saquon is a genetic freak compared to CMC. But Christian McCaffrey has way more touches this year, and he looks completely fine. Kind of ridiculous, honestly, with all the injuries that they've had. He's the one guy that's still kicking right now for the Niners. Incredible. Top 10 in basically everything that he can control.
Number 4, having the best season in my eyes in his career is where I put James Cook. And I think James Cook's balance as a runner and just ability to stay on his feet is the best in the NFL. There's so many plays throughout this entire season where it's like, okay, down he goes. Oh, wait, no, he's back up on his feet. He's getting another 10, 15 yards and get out of bounds. Not quite the crazy touchdown run that we saw last year, but we knew that was kind of fluky with him. And the receiving game, while it hasn't been great, I think it's really picked up in these last 4 weeks. He's got 3 receptions in each of these last 4 games and has obviously been a bit more of a focal point for the Bills in the receiving game because of all these receivers being hurt or just not being on the team. Maybe a bit of a fumbling issue, has 4 fumbles now in the season, but James Cook is fun to watch. And I wasn't really sold on him going into the season, but now at this point, I am. I'm a big James Cook guy. Number 3.
Number 3, I got Bijan Robinson, just under 1,000 rushing yards this season. And it's all of the great things that we know about Saquon Barkley as a prospect, the full, complete back, everything. And he's just a little younger and just gets a little more yards and bounces off a little easier. Plus, he's got over 500 receiving yards, too. I mean, that was like the only issue about him as a prospect was, maybe he's not the best receiving back. He's been completely fine this season. The only thing I think that knocks him is that Algier plays half the game, and that's not his fault, man. Again, that's a scheme thing. That's out of his control. Bijan Robinson's awesome. Top 3.
Number 3 is where I put Jonathan Taylor. Maybe a bit of a shocker here to put him at 3 instead of the number 1 and number 2 spots. Already has 3 games this year, over 150 rushing yards. He's got all these touchdowns, and I think when you see all those touchdowns, you could think, okay, he's a 1-yard merchant. He's getting the ball right at the goal line and getting in. That's not really how James Cook has rolled recently. Like he's getting 80-yard touchdowns. He's breaking off these long runs, and really wants to get into the into the red zone, it's like, okay, Jonathan Taylor's breaking one into the end zone here. The power, the balance is obviously great on him as well too. The speed isn't like off the charts, of course, but we know that it's never really been Jonathan Taylor's thing. It's all the other things that make him a great back. And the receiving game, I feel like at this point in his career, is the best that we've seen as well too. So I said James Cook again. Jonathan Taylor, number 3. Now into our top 2.
All right, number 2 is where I got your number 1. I'm going Jahmyr Gibbs. His game is all about the speed, right? Complete opposite of Jonathan Taylor. But I you know what? I'm not gonna say any of the negatives here because he doesn't deserve to have them brought up. He has no fumbles. He's ridiculously efficient, and I mean, like out of nowhere, he's got a crazy amount of power too in his game. There's no one like him. I can't believe that people were giving Detroit an F grade on that draft because he makes this offense go round right now, especially with St. Brown potentially missing some time. I'll keep it light and positive. Jahmyr Gibbs is number 2. He's awesome and definitely will make a case for number 1 next season.
Number 2, maybe a bit of a shocker considering where you had him ranked. This is where I have Devon Achane. And when Achane first came, yeah, that's fair. When Achane first came in the league, maybe his first year and a half, he was kind of that guy that, maybe got 10 touches a game, but every touch that he got, you were like, whoa, like this guy needs to get more touches. And now at this point for the Dolphins, they let him loose. They give him 20 touches a game, pretty much at least over 20 touches in at least the last 5-6 games for the Dolphins. Now at this point, he's become more of a downhill runner than what I ever expected him to be. And his speed is just off the charts. Gibbs, I would say, is faster. But besides that, I don't really know if there is another running back that has the gear that he does. Obviously, a great receiver as well, too. And I enjoy the way that Miami uses him and just drawing up these crazy plays, like the fake screen to the screen on the other side of the field or some weird stuff that Miami does. But he's a fun player to watch the ball in his hands, and he's at risk of taking it to the house each and every time that he gets the football. So Devon Achane, when you have that touchdown, home run ability, I got to put you up there. Now, number 1.
So, yeah, I'm keeping Jonathan Taylor at the top spot right now. So basically what it comes down to is I know he doesn't have the breakaway speed. Let me know if you hear the train, too. It's coming right now.
No, you're good.
Perfect. But here's the thing, dude. He's still more efficient than Jahmyr Gibbs. Obviously, he doesn't have the breakaway speed as him or Achane or some other guys we've talked about today. But the point is, Jonathan Taylor is so good, we thought the Colts might actually be able to go win the Super Bowl this year with Daniel Jones for the longest time. And that's why he's number 1 right now. He completely reshaped this team. And pretty much every other year, right, is when he's healthy. That's when the Colts look like they're going to be dangerous. And unfortunately, it looks like maybe they're going to fall apart here, but it's not Jonathan Taylor's fault. He's still doing just fine.
Number 1, I did put Jahmyr Gibbs at number 1, and I hate that David Montgomery exists. Sorry, David Montgomery, but if those extra 100 touches that Montgomery has this season went to Jahmyr Gibbs, we'd be looking at a guy that could legitimately put up 2K yards, like year in, year out. As of right now, he's over 1,400 all-purpose. But he's got the best home run ability in the NFL. And I think, obviously, of course, it comes down to play calling for all these guys. But when he gets football in his hands, like watch out. Like the power is now there at this point as well, too. But the speed is just next level. He gets another gear. The touchdowns this year in general, whether it's receiving or rushing, like, I don't know, he can – he literally does everything that you want from a running back. And now at this point, we've seen him have a couple games where he's gotten to 20 carries. I don't really think he got much of any of that last year. Only a couple games over 20 carries in his career coming into the season. Feels like now it's not just a switch off every single drive running back thing. I think Dan Campbell realizes that they're a whole lot better when Jahmyr Gibbs is on the field. That's fun to see because when he's got the football in his hands, I think he's probably the most exciting player in the NFL right now, and that's why I have him at number one.
It's like the CJ2K archetype. We've never really seen a guy get this many carries since then, so I'm excited. Sure.
Yeah. I was watching CJ2K highlights a couple days ago of that 2,500-yard season.
Yeah.
And he's so fast that he looks slow. That doesn't even make sense, but he's moving so fast that it just doesn't really even make sense with what he's doing. But regardless, we're not ranking CJ2K today because he's got to get away from the cop speed. But regardless, into our CFP predictions, and I'll just go over the bracket right now that we have just announced on ESPN like less than 30 minutes ago. Number one, Ohio State, of course. Number two, Indiana. So obviously the winner of that conference will get the number one spot. Number three is Georgia. Number four is Texas Tech. So they move into the four spot, get a current bye as of right now. Number five is Oregon. Number six is Ole Miss. Number seven is Texas A&M after their first loss of the season. Number eight is Oklahoma. Number nine is Alabama. Number 10 is Notre Dame, which will have to stick, of course, at this point in the year. Number 11 will be the fourth conference championship, and then number 12 will be the fifth conference champ, which I don't think we've seen in the rankings like that, where they just leave that spot open for now, which is kind of interesting to see. Obviously, it's different this year as well, too, where it's just the five top-ranked champions.
Well, Boise and Arizona State were ranked so high last year that we didn't have to deal with all this BS.
Yeah. But I think if we see a couple of Group of 5 teams get in, then maybe we see the rankings changed again and mandatory at least 8 SEC teams get into the playoff or something like that. But no Pavia, which is cool to see. Regardless, time to get into our top 12. So how we're going to have to do this is that this is our predictions kind of who's going to win the conference championship games. And then after that, we have a bracket and how that bracket goes. So why don't we start off with our top 4 and say which bids are auto with, who's winning the conference. So
gotcha.
1 through 4, what do you got?
All right. Number 1, I got Ohio State getting the automatic bid, winning against Indiana in that Big Ten championship game. Number 2, I have Georgia. I have them beating Alabama in their game. Number 3, Indiana only falls 1 spot after losing to number 1. And then number 4, I do have that Texas Tech moving in. If they beat BYU, they should get it. So I'm glad they did it today.
Yeah, I've got a very similar top 4. Actually, I think it's the exact same. Ohio State, number 1. They get the auto bid. They beat Indiana in the Big Ten championship this weekend. Number 2 is Georgia. They beat Alabama in the SEC championship this weekend. Number 3 is Indiana. Don't think they have any reason to be outside of the top 4 if they lose to Ohio State, unless they lose by like 80 or something crazy like that, and Mendoza gets hurt and Kurt Cignetti kills somebody or something like that. I think we're seeing them.
Goes to Penn State.
Yeah, they're a lock for top 3. And then number 4 is where I have Texas Tech. I do think they beat BYU. Currently 12.5-point favorites, so it feels pretty easy. They will win that game, but we've seen crazier in the Big 12.
Yeah.
So 5 through 12, where things actually do really get interesting. A couple of auto bids that we still need to talk about. Who's your 5 through 12?
All right. We'll start off with number 5. The top wild card team is Oregon, right? Today pretty much clinched it. They're getting in. They're probably going to stick at the 5 spot too. Number 6, I'm actually going to bump up Texas A&M. 7 is Ole Miss. I guess it's a -1 for losing your coach. There is, if you read the fine print of the rankings, they say, we have the ability to change things the last week if your coach leaves, basically. So I'm going to swap Texas A&M and Ole Miss there. Number 8, not an auto bid. Again, I have Notre Dame. We talk about it every year. I'm on board with Notre Dame. I know some people in the South are upset that they're not playing this weekend, but I think they're a pretty good team. Number 9, another SEC team, Oklahoma. It's been real ugly, but you know what? They got to win over Alabama. So they're in my opinion. Number 10, This was the hardest one for me. At the end of the day, I was like, who would I rather watch? Vanderbilt, Alabama, Miami. I would rather watch Diego Pavia, to be honest with you. Today, based off of the rankings, it seems like this is going to be Alabama if they lose. So I guess let's just say this is Alabama right here at 10. Now is when things get interesting, though. Number 11, I have Virginia, an automatic qualifier. I would love to see the chaos scenario here and seeing the ACC get left out. That'd be awesome. Honestly, though, I think Virginia earned it. They've won at Cal. They literally just won at Duke. So I would be surprised if they choke this. And then the last spot, the last automatic spot, going to Tulane. I'm going to be rooting for the North Texas guys once they get to Oklahoma State, but we're not there yet. Tulane's got a lot more experience than the North Texas squad does in this kind of setting. So I'm going to stick with my one preseason pick that ended up being a pretty good one is Tulane has a great year, gets the 12 spot.
My 5 through 12 does get hectic. Number 5, Texas A&M is who I had at 5. So maybe, now that the rankings are out, it goes a little bit differently. But this is how I would have ranked them if I was the committee. Texas A&M, perfect season until this past week. I do think they deserve to be that number 5 spot in the toughest conference in the nation, in my opinion. Number 6 is where I actually had Alabama. I don't think Alabama should be at number 9. I don't think that makes sense to me. They beat Georgia. They beat Vandy. They have great wins on their resume. I think if you're in the SEC championship game and as good of a year as it is for the SEC, you deserve to be top 6. I think, losers of the Big Ten, losers of the SEC should be, at least get a home game in this spot. I don't think there's any reason for Oklahoma to be ahead of them. Number 7 is where I put Oregon. Obviously, now at this point, we know that's probably not where they're going to land, considering that they are the number 5 team. I think they're probably stuck there. But number 7 isn't too much crazier. So that's where I have them. Number 8 is where I did put Oklahoma. So it's the same spot as the current rankings. Obviously, they're one of those teams that isn't playing this weekend. Can't really move at all, so they stay there. Number 9 is where I put Notre Dame. They, again, another team that doesn't play this year or play this weekend. Obviously, the talent is still there. They made the national championship last year. They have a lot of the same players. The main cog on their offense, the running back Jeremiah Love is still there. Probably the Heisman in my eyes. So number 9 is okay with me. And then number 10 is where I put Ole Miss. This is similar to a Jordan Travis situation when we saw Florida State miss the playoff while being perfect, while being in the rankings before, but just because their quarterback got hurt is the reason why they weren't in. Ole Miss without Lane Kiffin is going to be a whole lot different, and I think it's reasonable if you really wanted to drop them out of the rankings completely. Would I feel terrible for the Ole Miss and Tristan Chambliss, all those dudes? Of course, that would suck ass for them. But I did drop them down to number 10. They don't get a home game, have to go somewhere else. And now is where things get interesting because I have Duke winning the ACC championship. Maybe it's just for the hell of it to make it fun and change things up. But I also have Tulane losing in the AAC championship. So I have North Texas as my number 11 seed, which I think everybody would love to see North Texas play a college football playoff game because of how ridiculous their offense is. It's practically guaranteed to have an over-under of at least 100. So they get an auto bid. And then number 12, if Tulane loses, if Virginia loses, kind of has to be James Madison, right? I don't think they're going to lose to Troy. So James Madison does get in. They're 23.5-point favorites against Troy right now. And if Troy won that game and got into the college football playoff, I think that'd be the most ridiculous thing we've ever seen in our life. But JMU gets the number 12 spots. Just probably won't last because they're going to have to go play Texas A&M. As we get into our first round, 9 versus 8, 10 versus 7, 11 versus 6, and 12 versus 5. Give me the 4 games. Give me how they go.
All right. So obviously we're going to have different matchups. So I'll try to make it as clear as possible who's hosting what here because 8 and 9, I think we have the same teams, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, but this is going to come down to who's hosting it. I flipped them. So I have Notre Dame hosting this game. Oklahoma has a frightening defense under Brent Venables, which is something I never thought I'd ever say. But I got to say, though, Notre Dame at home, they got much better playmakers, a coach who's been there before. I think CJ Carr is legit, and I got to watch him firsthand beat down on Boise State. So I have Notre Dame moving on. Want to do one at a time or go through?
You go straight chat.
All righty. 7-10. This is one of the fun SEC ones that we get based off of the chaos of this SEC championship game. I actually have Ole Miss getting to host this game against Alabama. And you know what? Whether it's Vandy, Bama, Texas, Miami, I think it's a trap game, 100%. There are so many distractions in the building, but this is why they got their coach already. Home field advantage is a big factor here, but if they are at home, I'm going to take Ole Miss to actually win one without Lane Kiffin. That would be the biggest possible FU to him on his way out. Two more games here to go. Texas A&M hosting Virginia. This may actually be a good game, but I can't pick Virginia. You know, they're not able to score on these guys. Chandler Morris, a nice comeback story as he goes from Oklahoma to Virginia, but the numbers are mediocre. They would lose pretty badly. And then 5-12, Oregon, Tulane. Oregon would murder them. I don't dislike Tulane, but this is one of those schools who, you can't take anything away from it, They're the 12 seed for a reason. They're here because they're trying to earn their school a bunch of money. And I don't think that's a bad thing for college football. I think they deserve to be there if they win the American, even though Oregon would kill them.
My first round, number 9 Notre Dame going to number 8 Oklahoma. Be a fun one. I don't think Carr is good enough to play against that defense. To definitely be the best defense that he's seen all year, especially in some time, of course. Playmakers, of course, for Notre Dame are a big one. Jeremiah Love, just the whole offense, running back duo. Like they got guys, but I trust Oklahoma's defense. I think it's probably top tier in the SEC. They get a dub at home there, which obviously matters as well too. 10, Ole Miss going to number 7 Oregon. Tough situation if you're Ole Miss. Regardless of how many you score, Oregon's going to score at least one more than you. So Oregon wins that one, probably like 39-14 or something like that. Couple of interesting games now. Number 11 North Texas at number 6 Bama would be nuts. I think North Texas could be a team that, like, if things go right, they legitimately have a chance to go beat Bama. But with how their offense is, they take so many chances that you're going to fuck up eventually against Alabama, and that's the problem. Alabama wins that game probably in a blowout, but in this case, I say they both score 40 and make it fun. And then number 12 JMU at number 5 Texas A&M. How Texas A&M's been playing recently, I think it's reasonable to say that A&M, you're not 100% confident going into this game, even if it is against JMU.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it is JMU. And Texas A&M will win this game. Although I also think it would be fun maybe if JMU loses, Duke wins the ACC, and maybe have a 5-loss team in the playoffs. But I don't even know if they do that. I don't know if Duke's ranked like 80th or something like that. But regardless, number 5 Texas A&M. Moving on to the second round.
Maybe the scenario you're referring to is the only way Boise could get in.
Yeah,
but we're not going there. Don't worry.
Yeah,
I understand. So all right. Starting off the next round, number 1 Ohio State faces number 8 Notre Dame, and I'm going to stick with the Buckeyes here. We'll see how they look against Indiana, but it's not like that game matters at all for the rankings. It's just, we'll see how it plays out for awards, but it should be a low scoring game if they do play Notre Dame. I just don't think they could keep up with the Buckeyes. Here's where CJ Carr would have some issues. My next game here, number 2 Georgia Number 7, Ole Miss. Georgia should win pretty easily here. This game is probably in Atlanta too, which which version of Gunnar Stockton do we see in the playoffs? That's a big thing because we know Kirby is going to bring his A stuff to the playoffs like he always does. But do they get lucky here with an Ole Miss matchup, or is Georgia actually going to go on a run? Number 3, Indiana would play number 6, Texas A&M. And I was skeptical of Texas A&M. They no show against Texas. Indiana's kind of on a different level right now on offense. So Marcel Reed would need to have a massive game here if they're going to be Indiana. I'm not going to pick against Mendoza right now. And then the 4-5, Texas Tech, Oregon, maybe the Rose Bowl here, should be a great game if we get it. Oregon still trying to get over the hump for the first time. They're playing the new kids on the block. They got the oil tycoon money. But I'm going to take Oregon on a neutral site. When it's not Ohio State, Oregon usually has a pretty good matchup.
Second round for me of the quarterfinals starts off with Oklahoma up against Ohio State. And I wish these games were on the campuses. I think that'd make it so much more fun. But I understand that we get all these bowl games that have to be played, and this is where that starts. Oklahoma going in, I think you have the better defense. Not when you play Ohio State. Defensive edge goes to Ohio State. The offensive edge obviously goes to Ohio State as well, too. They win this game. I don't think it's, some crazy blowout, but probably like a 23-9 type game or something like that. 7 versus 2 is fun. Oregon versus Georgia, a couple of head coaches going at it, Dan Lanning, Kirby Smart. I think this would be probably the best game out of this entire round. If we got Oregon, Georgia, I don't know exactly how they put games in the Rose Bowl, but this would be my Rose Bowl game here. I think it's the best game in this round. And I have Oregon actually upset in Georgia in this one. I think it's possible. Like you said, when it's not Ohio State, Oregon fares pretty well usually. And I think they fare well in this game and say goodbye to the Georgia Bulldogs. 6 versus 3, kind of old versus new, even though it's not really. Alabama versus Indiana is a fun one. And I'm taking Indiana winning this game. They've looked questionable at times, especially in the second half of the season. But when this team is on, and I think they will be after coming off of this month-long break that they get now at that point, I think they're going to be perfect in this game. I also think Ty Simpson is not a guy that I'm quite sold on at this point, and maybe I'll be batting my words because he'll be playing quarterback for the Raiders in 8 months, but that's besides the point. Indiana moves on and takes on Alabama here. And then a battle of Texas, although it's not really the way that you'd think it'd be. Texas A&M versus Texas Tech, 5 versus 4. The Longhorns are watching this game like it's Squidward inside of his house watching Patrick and SpongeBob play. I got Texas Tech in the victory here. A&M scared me this past month with all their games. Even in the games that they've won, they haven't looked the greatest. The offenses started off slow. I think if you do that versus Texas Tech, who has experience playing in these crazy, Big 12 games where things just go haywire from the get-go, I trust Texas Tech to get the victory there. So they move on to the semis. Go ahead and give me the 2 games that you got heading into the national championship.
All right. Well, unfortunately for Oregon, the way my board falls right now, they would have to play Ohio State before they got to the championship game. And, the Ducks have been super locked in down the stretch, but I just don't see it. I don't see them beating Ohio State, especially what happened last year. That game was not even close. Maybe they do save the Rose Bowl for them again here, but the scheduling's got to be so complicated for college football right now that I'm not even going to try to guess anymore. The next game, though, this would be my game of the year. Georgia, Indiana. Georgia's amazing defense going up against Fernando Mendoza, Kurt Cignetti. Dude, if Indiana gets to the Natty, I think Cignetti deserves a lifetime contract there for whatever he wants, blank check. But I'm going to have to end their run here. Kirby Smart has been here too many times before. I feel way more comfortable picking Georgia with a questionable quarterback than I am picking Indiana in their first time ever getting this far.
My semis start off with Texas Tech and Ohio State. Do I really need to say more?
Nope.
Big 12 versus Big 10 usually tends to go a certain way. Ohio State gets the victory here quite easily. And then a fun one. We've already seen it. Number 7 Oregon versus number 3 Indiana. I think it plays out the same way that we saw it last time. Indiana gets the victory. Good fun game. A little bit of momentum on both sides. But it sets up an all Big 10 championship. Indiana versus Ohio State. National championship, who do you have? Who do you got?
Yeah, we'll see, man. If this Big Ten championship game plays out how a lot of us think it is, maybe that's what I'll be rooting for. But right now, I'm sticking with 1 and 2, Ohio State and Georgia. And you know what? I don't think Ohio State is untouchable either, but I do think they match up very well with Georgia. This is one of the few years where the Buckeyes defense is actually better than Kirby Smart's. I trust Julian Sayin, Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, Bo Jackson. They just keep finding guys. I trust them a lot more than I trust Gunnar Stockton. And I got Ohio State going back to back. Give me a great game, though. I want 30-24. I don't want a blowout.
So, like I said, my national championship, all Big Ten, Indiana versus Ohio State. And even with them losing the Big Ten championship game, I think Indiana is going to be very prepared for this one. Curt Cignetti's probably the best coach in college football. I think you could reasonably say that. Obviously, Kirby Smart, Dan Lanning, guys like that, obviously, deserve their shouts. But doing as much as Cignetti's done with the talent that he has on his roster compared to all the 5 stars at Oregon and USC and Georgia and Bama and Ohio State get, I think Curt Cignetti's doing the best with his talent that he has on his roster. So getting a couple weeks to prepare, playing a team that you've already played before, knowing what you're going to see, I'll give it to him. I think Indiana's Cinderella season ends in a national championship, which would be the most ridiculous thing that we've seen in our lifetime, I'd say, as college football fans. But I do think it's possible, and I think if things go the way that they go here, where they play Alabama, who I think is not as good as what they've been in the past. If they play Oregon, a team that they've already beat, and they play Ohio State, a team that they've already seen in person with their own 2 eyes and played against, I think there's a chance that they win this one. So I have Indiana winning it all. Just a crazy year in college football, and it culminates in Indiana getting the chip. So now only about 10 minutes left. We got to fly through Heisman picks and offseason stuff in the MLB and our bets before we get on out of here. But let's get it started with the Heisman picks. Let's get going.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun. I just wanted to make sure I locked in a Heisman pick before we moved on to another episode. So in such a weird season, anything is possible, but I think we do know who's going to New York now. I think that's going to be Mendoza, Sayin, Pavia, and Love. I don't know if they're going to have a 5th guy, maybe Rodriguez, the linebacker. Here's my thinking. Jeremiah Love's awesome. I don't think he separated himself enough from Ahmad Hardy, who I think was the best running back in the nation. Pavia for sure is getting an invite. In my eyes, he's a little bit too reckless for a senior. So I think it's coming down to this conference championship game. Sayin was the more efficient passer this season. Mendoza's season, though, way more shocking. 37 touchdowns, 5 picks. He ran the read option. I think a guy who could go 12-0 with Indiana should win the Heisman Trophy. In a year like this, where the numbers are a lot lower, they're a game away from being number 1 in the nation. That's insane to me. So I'm predicting that Mendoza does win it.
Yeah, I do think this is the first year, at least in my eyes, where even that we know probably he's going to New York, I still don't really have a clue who's going to win it. Usually it's like it's 1 or 2 guys. The 3rd and 4th guys are there, getting the thanks for the invite type stuff, like, fun trip to New York and whatnot, but there was never a chance that they're going to win it. I think there's a legitimate chance that all 4 of those guys can win. That makes it pretty cool. It'll make it fun on, Heisman night, unless it somehow leaks of who's going to win. And I think it'll make it suspenseful, but I'd probably say Mendoza as well too at this point. Mm-hmm. So MLB news, honestly, not a ton of stuff, but the stuff that we have got is pretty MLB worthy. On the 26th, we got Dylan Cease signing his 7-year contract, 2026 to 2032.
Big money.
With the Toronto Blue Jays, 7 years, $210 million. The other one that we got a couple days later, Ryan Helsley signs a 2-year deal with the Baltimore Orioles to be their closer. We saw some possible stuff about him being a starter. I think that's kind of shut down at this point. Now that he signed with the Orioles, he also has a bonus if he gets traded in there. So maybe he says something about the Orioles not being completely all in as we expected, even with them spending some money. Devin Williams signed a couple days later with the Mets. Even got a text from you because of it. 3-year deal, $50 million. I believe about 6 of that is like incentives, so 45 guaranteed in there. They said they could still bring back Edwin Diaz, but I feel like if you're paying a reliever $15+ million, it becomes a little tougher to do that. But then again, that's the Mets. They have no problem spending money. Cody Ponce, coming over from the KBOs, been in the MLB in the past, just a little bit of MLB experience, signs 3-year deal with the Toronto Blue Jays. Another one of those teams now that's just stacking up pitching as much as they possibly can. And then we also got Alek Manoah signing a 1-year deal over with the Angels, and Ryan Weiss, who was pitching in the KBO as well too, doesn't have any MLB experience, but only 29 years old, signs a 1-year deal with the Houston Astros. I believe that's a major league contract as well too. So now, layups, bowl predictions before we get out of here. Good week for us. We hit on both of our bowl predictions, so you came out plus money, even with us missing both of our layups. I had the Rams minus 10.5. Obviously did not happen. Skyler had Oklahoma minus 10.5 versus LSU. They won that one, right? But it was a close one, so it does not go green there. This week, I have Houston plus 3.5 versus Kansas City. I don't really know why Kansas City's favorite at this point. I like Houston to be protected by that field goal, though, even if they do lose. Great defense, of course, as we know, and I think the offense is starting to tick up as well, too.
All right, back to college football for my pick. We're talking Mountain West Conference. Dude, I am just so sick of playing UNLV. Like, this is like the 4th year in a row we played them in this game, and they have never won on the blue. They haven't beaten us since 1976. Let's keep it rolling, man. Maddox Madsen's back. We're not talking playoffs, but let's leave the Mountain West on a high note and get over there in the Pac-12 with the rest of the boys next year.
Rest of the boys. There you go. Last week, bowl predictions. Well. Plus 260 Cincinnati on Thanksgiving night. Thank you very much. That goes green there against the Baltimore Ravens. Big time victory as well, too. I believe they won by 18. Skyler had Houston plus 175 at the Indianapolis Colts. Of course, that happens as well, too. So if you bet on those, you'd be up big time from both of us this past week. This next week, though, I'm riding the wave with Cincinnati. They're plus 215. Going into Buffalo would be a tough game, but we've seen Cincinnati pull this game off before. When they're down and out, it seems like they always have a way to get it done. Hopefully T. Higgins is back this week as well, too. Could be a game where they just put up a ton of points on Buffalo because Joe Burrow looked way healthier than I expected to see him on Thanksgiving night. And that's pretty cool to see because when he's healthy, the league is better.
Yeah. Not one big thing that I love this week. So I'm going back to something we do during baseball season is let's find 2 slight underdogs, throw them together, make it a 2-pick bowl prediction. So like I was just talking about, I got Tulane winning outright against North Texas. Should be an awesome game. I'm doesn't mean that if North Texas wins, I'm going to be so sad, but we're going to combine that with the Washington Commanders. They're going to beat Minnesota, whether it's J.J. McCarthy, Max Prosmer. I don't care. Mariota looked pretty good the other night, huh? That's against Denver defense, too.
Mariota. I got this. That was like rage baiting me from Chris Collinsworth, dude. I couldn't understand it. It made me want to kill myself.
Yeah, because he said it during the intros or something like that, so they flipped on it immediately.
I can't believe that. Yeah, that was like the worst thing I saw this past week. But regardless, that's going to do it for episode 271. Next week, 272, we'll know the conference winners in college football, which will be cool. We'll be another week closer to the NFL playoffs, so we'll do some power rankings and stuff there. We'll have to see where we put the Rams after they lost to the Panthers. Hopefully some more MLB stuff, because that stuff's always happening. And we'll know who's going to New York for the Heisman, I think, at that point.
Probably.
Maybe.
Probably.
So,
Yeah.
Any closing remarks?
Hey, man, over the last month, the Jets are 3-2. You got to start somewhere. I guess too, this is something we can end on is both of our teams are, in tank mode right now. But honestly, I don't care. I don't care. We've been burned so many times in the past. I'd just rather see them try to actually win a couple games in a row. And they're obviously playing hard for Aaron Glenn right now, which is more than we've had in a while.
Yeah, that's good. I'm full tank right now. I'm rooting for us to lose. There's only two things I like to see, or three things I'd like to see each week. Genty does good, which he didn't have the greatest game against the Chargers, but not a lot of running backs do. Brock Bowers does good. Obviously, he was amazing against the Chargers. And then Max Crosby does good. And he was wrecking up Justin Herbo, even though he taunted him and got a penalty because of it. But regardless,
yeah,
it's always next year for the Raiders.
Almost in mock draft season.
Yeah.
Almost there.
There we go. Give me Mendoza.
We'll see you 272 next week, Kyle. We'll see you later.
Yeah, go whatever. I don't know.